The LA Kings looked locked in against the Islanders. I'll tell you why that's a very good thing. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. Also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. The LA Kings bounce back from that tough loss to the Dallas Stars with a hard-fought, grinded-out victory over the previously streaking New York Islanders to wrap up a 5-game homestand and stay in one of the top 3 spots in the Pacific Division. We're going to recap the game and tell you why this was a very good win for LA. But as expected, Kings defenseman Mikey Anderson did return to the LA lineup after missing 8 games with an upper body injury, but there were some lineup differences from the Kings' projected lineup after the Monday morning skate. The Kings head coach Jim Hiller decided to return to that 11-7 lineup, which he deviated away from for one game. So back to the 11 forwards and the 7 defensemen, with Brant Clark in the AHL. Jacob Moverar was the extra defenseman, and Arthur Kaliyev was the lone healthy scratch. More on him coming up. And David Rittich was once again in net. Alex Turcotte would start up on the top line, but wouldn't stay there for the entire game. As the game went on, there were some shifting of the lines, and some people didn't get the ice time that they might have saw earlier in the game. As for the game, if you missed it, quick recap. Both teams came out hard in the opening period, but combined for just 12 shots on goal after a scoreless opening period. There were some interesting penalty calls against LA, but fortunately it did not turn into power play goals for the New York Islanders. Now, the Kings, who typically don't play their best hockey in the second period, cranked out 12 shots on goal in that second period alone. One of them would find the back of the net. That was Adrian Kempe's 20th of the season. Beautiful wrist shot from Juice, and the Kings grab a 1-0 lead. Jordan Spence and Alex Laferriere assisting on that goal. To the third period, and the Kings add to their lead thanks to Philip Deneau. But a tap-in goal on a beautiful pass from Trevor Moore. Drew Doughty would get a secondary assist to make it 2-0. And then the third period, Moore would also make a nice anticipation play. He would step in front of a pass, pick it off, and put it into an empty net to seal the Kings' victory. LA skates off with a solid 3-0 win over the Islanders to snap New York's 6-game winning streak. Let's check out the game stats for this one as the Kings get the 3-0 shutout victory. Shots on goal favored the Islanders barely, 26-25. As for the power plays, the Kings were 0 for 3 officially, really 0 for 2. They had a power play of like 15 seconds at one point. After a lot of those penalty calls, there was an interesting little stretch where the Kings got called for a couple of penalties. So they were down 5-on-3, and then the Islanders took a penalty, so it was 5-on-4, and then it turned into a 4-on-4, and eventually the Kings had a very brief power play. But anyway, the story again was 0 for 3 for the Kings officially on the power play. The Islanders 0 for 5 with the man advantage. Faceoffs favored the Islanders 32-20, so the Kings take a step back as far as what they did in the faceoff circle. Block shots favored the Kings 16-15, and hits favored LA 26-24. One word to describe the Kings game against the Islanders, and I am going to say that one word is complete. This was a complete game for the Kings. 3 solid periods of hockey for LA. Yes, at times this was an offensively challenged game, but the intensity was there. Both teams played great defense in a game that had a playoff feel to it. Hall of Famer Patrick Waugh, who's now the head coach of the New York Islanders, afterwards called it playoff hockey. Now, the Islanders aren't typically known for their offense, but the Kings did shut out a team that, again, was riding a 6-game winning streak and was averaging 5 goals per game over that 6-game winning streak. And this is an Islanders team that's fighting for a playoff spot in the East, so a very motivated team to come out and play hard. Bottom line, again, solid win for the LA Kings. Exactly what you're looking for at this time of year, wanting to play your best hockey going into the postseason. So hopefully this is a good time for the Kings and something they can continue to do more often than not the rest of the way. Talked about Mikey Anderson being back in the lineup for the Kings. Let's hear a quote, or let's read a quote from the Kings defenseman talking about getting back in the lineup and getting a big win. Mikey said about this win, quote, "I thought we started a lot with our forwards. They were fast, heavy on the forecheck, made it hard for their D. I thought we on the back end did a good job of trying to play quick, get pucks to them, and let them do their thing. Overall, it felt like was good all the way around. And then we had Ritter back there when we needed him." So again, Mikey Anderson talking about a good team victory for the LA Kings. As for Anderson, pretty solid return. We played 18 minutes and 59 seconds. He was a +1, didn't have a point, and registered 2 hits. So we saw Adrian Kempe return. Now we see Mikey Anderson come back, and both have looked good so far in their returns from injury. As for the 3 stars of the game in this victory over the Islanders, my number 3 star goes to goaltender David Rittich. 26 saves for his second shutout as a King. Now, he didn't make many spectacular saves like we saw from Cam Talbot in the Ottawa game, but he made all the saves he needed to make, and he made it look pretty easy. His rebound control was excellent. He was just absorbing pucks all night. And it's not hard to recognize someone when they get a shutout, but I'm also picking David Rittich as far as him kind of representing the entire team defensively. When a goalie gets a shutout, yes, you circle that around him individually, but I thought he played very well in net, and the Kings all around him limited the Islanders from getting the puck into high danger areas and really getting any quality scoring chances. So David Rittich is my number 3 star, but again, that's kind of representative of the entire defensive effort for the Kings. My number 2 star goes to Trevor Moore, the only King to have a multi-point game in that Islander win. He had a goal and an assist. He sealed the victory with the empty net goal, and then had the primary assist on the goal from Philip Deneau, who basically just put his stick on the ice and just had to have the puck hit it and deflect it in. Didn't have to do too much other than being in the right place at the right time, but Moore's nice pass made it easy for him. Trevor now with 25 goals and 45 points on the season. He's 3 away from a new career high in points, and his 25 goals have blown away his previous career high, which was 17. So good to see Trevor Moore, after a slump, getting back on track, hopefully at the right time. My number 1 star is going to be Adrian Kempe. Just his second game back from injury, scored the all-important first goal in this one, a wicked wrist shot that beat goalie Elias Sorokin. Kempe, who now has at least 20 goals in 3 straight seasons. That was his 20th, not showing any signs of the injury that cost him 5 games. Kempe started on the 3rd line to start the game. Now, if he sticks there, that certainly could bring some all-important balance to the lineup, although for most of the second half of this game, he was back on the top line with Andrei Kopitar and Quentin Byfield. As far as some positives to take away from this game, some pluses, obviously the penalty kill. It has been the one constant for the Kings all season long. There were several moments where the Islanders could have gotten back in the game with a power play opportunity. That included some 5-on-3 time as well, but the Kings PK came through every time. Trevor Moore nearly had 2 shorthanded goals. He had a breakaway chance that he didn't convert on. But in good times and bad, the Kings penalty kill has been there for them all season, and it needs to continue to be, especially in the playoffs. As far as negatives, minuses from this one, the penalties. The Kings continue to take too many penalties. Now, I will admit there were some questionable calls in this one. Goalie interference call on Adrian Kempe. There was definitely contact with the defender that caused him to go into the goalie. It's a judgment call on the officials. They felt like maybe he could have done a better job of avoiding the contact, but that was a call that it could have easily gone either way. And then right after that, there was a high sticking call on Trevor Moore. It was on a follow-through on a clearing attempt, and normally referees will take that into account and not make that call, but they didn't in this case. They made the call, and again, Kings went down 2 men for a little while, but LA's penalty kill came through. But as far as the penalties go, there were some avoidable penalties as well. PL Dubois took 2 bad penalties, one a holding call, one a tripping call. Trevor Lewis took a late tripping call that could have let the Islanders get back in the game. Those are avoidable penalties. The Kings need to limit those as much as possible. I get that maybe the Kings feel that they can be a little extra aggressive because of how good the penalty kill has been, and that can be a positive, but only if you're taking penalties that are of an aggressive nature. Like if you're forechecking hard and maybe you get a little too overly aggressive, okay. But the careless penalties, the high sticks, the trippings, the holdings, there are too many of those for the LA Kings. Penalties are going to happen, but make them good penalties. Make them aggressive penalties. Make them penalties that are obviously trying to thwart a high-scoring opportunity for your opponent. Kings didn't really have that much of that. So overall, though, great win for the Kings as they head out on their 3-game road trip. We'll talk about that. Plus, what's the future of Arthur Kaliyev in LA? That's next on Locked on LA Kings, your team every day. We're heading into the stretch run of the NHL season, and the Kings have hopes of making a playoff run. But regardless of where the Kings are in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether players like Austin Matthews or Nathan McKinnon will record more or less based on Sleeper's projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. And it's not just the NHL. You can also play daily fantasy with the NBA. You can win 100 times bet on Sleeper if you correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me right, Kings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks, and you could start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That is the code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities. Hey, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and you can also find it on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now on Amazon Fire TV. Well, the LA Kings have 18 games left, 9 home, 9 road before they get into the playoffs. Kings will be looking for more games like they had against the Islanders. The Kings looking to get on track, playing some good, solid hockey going on the stretch. Now, the Kings are off on a 3-game road trip. LA will be in St. Louis to face the Blues on Wednesday, then back-to-back road games Friday and Saturday in Chicago and in Dallas. One injury update to pass along. Friend of the show, Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty, saw him tweet out today that forward Victor Arvidsson will not be accompanying the team on this road trip, recover from that lower body injury. So again, Arvidsson will not be joining the Kings on this road trip. So we'll see if he can get back in the Kings lineup once they return home next week. I mentioned at the top of the show when discussing the Kings lineup that Arthur Kaliyev was once again the odd man out for the Kings with that 11-7 setup. So what are the Kings doing with Arthur Kaliyev? And if there's been one preseason prediction that I had that I've totally gotten wrong, it was my prediction that Arthur Kaliyev was going to have a breakout season. I thought he was going to be this year's Gabe Vilardi, a guy who's kind of been there, but for whatever reason hasn't had the breakout season. I really thought with Vilardi being gone that he was going to get some sort of an improved role with the Kings and was going to really show up and show what type of player that he is that made him a second-round pick back in 2018. Well, it hasn't worked out, and he has not scored a goal since December the 5th. He's only got 1 point since then as well. He's appeared in 26 games since that last goal, and no points, nothing. Now, his ice time has decreased each month this season. In the month of October, first month of the season, he was getting 14 minutes and 21 seconds of ice time. Last month in February, it was down to 10 minutes and 8 seconds. The only 2 games he's played this month, each time it was less than 10 minutes of ice time. So it is hard to imagine as the games get more and more important that suddenly Arthur Kaliyev's role is going to change, barring injuries, of course, which we hope don't happen. I know that his all-around game has issues and that coaches have to do what's in the best interest of the group over the individual, but it seems like the Kings could have done a better job of giving him more of an opportunity. Now, as a player, obviously, you have to earn your ice time. And if Artie was told specifically some things he needed to improve on to stay in the lineup and he wasn't doing those things, then obviously that's going to result in him not getting in the lineup. Plus, again, you have to do what's in the best interest of the team overall rather than the individual. If this were a team that was not in a playoff position, you could see him getting a lot more ice time, maybe an increased role because you want to figure out if this young player is going to be an impact player at the NHL level or not. But obviously that's not the case with the Kings. They've been battling for a playoff spot. Now that it seems that they're comfortably in one at this point, they've kind of got the lineup set. And even with the departure of Jared Anderson-Dolan, who took up, I think, a lot of Kaliyev's ice time, he's still not getting back in the lineup with this 11-7 setup. And we'll see how long the Kings do that. It has been successful for him, but Kaliyev is one of 5 restricted free agents at the end of the season. A little bit surprised he wasn't moved at the trade deadline. Certainly wouldn't be surprised if he was moved at the NHL draft this offseason. But Arthur Kaliyev is clearly one of those guys. He has talent, but he just hasn't either earned the opportunity or circumstances haven't given him the opportunity to get the ice time that he needs to be able to put up numbers. I hate to say it, but I could totally see him going to another place, getting a better opportunity and putting up some good numbers and showing that he is in fact a guy that could be a very solid NHL player, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be the case in Los Angeles. I also wanted to touch on one last time something involving the NHL trade deadline and possibly involving the LA Kings. Now, you probably heard, if you've paid attention, certainly we discussed it on this show, that the Boston Bruins had a deal in place to trade goaltender Linus Ullmark, last year's Vezina Trophy winner. And he killed the deal. Ullmark killed the deal because he has a 16-team no-trade clause to ship him out of Boston. Now, the reports were that he killed the deal for geographic reasons, that he was going to be sent somewhere out west. And because his family lives in Sweden, and I assume they fly over to see him, that he didn't want to make it any more difficult for them to have to fly even farther to see him. Plus, maybe he just likes being in Boston. He certainly seems to enjoy his time there. But whatever the reason was, that was cited as the big reason for him to kill the trade. Now, he certainly has earned that right. He negotiated that, him and his agent, into his contract. So, like I said, if he doesn't want to go, he's got the right to say he doesn't want to go. But the reports were the Kings were involved in the trade for Ullmark. And then there were other reports that say, no, it wasn't the Kings. But if it wasn't the Kings, what team out west is really looking for a goalie? I think the Kings were clearly the one team out west that needed a goalie. If you look at the other teams in the Pacific Division, for example, Vancouver, the top team in the division, they're not looking for a goalie. They got Thatcher Demko, although he's hurt right now, but that was after the deadline. Vegas, I mean, with what they've done at the goalie position and winning a cup with kind of a rotating door, I don't know. I mean, you never know with Vegas what they would do, but I didn't see that as a possibility. You look at Edmonton, I don't think so. I think they're okay with Stuart Skinner. Maybe some of the teams in the Central, Colorado, maybe Colorado looking to upgrade in net. Certainly not Dallas or Winnipeg. They are set in net. As far as the wildcard teams, I don't see Nashville or St. Louis looking to upgrade a goal. Seattle maybe could use an upgrade in net, but at the deadline, it seemed like they were not interested in being buyers. They were looking to be sellers. Matter of fact, they made one move where they traded a player away, and that was it. They didn't do anything else. So of all the teams out west, it seems like the LA Kings made the most sense. Now, obviously, that's not proof of anything. I don't know if we'll ever definitively hear exactly what happened. Probably not. But I'm leaning towards, the reports are that it involved the Kings. The reports are it didn't involve the Kings. I'm more leaning towards it. The Kings were that team involved because they were clearly the one team out west that was looking for an upgrade in net. And, well, that did not happen. And Boston didn't make the move because of Linus Ullmark. So anyway, it doesn't matter, I guess, at this point, but I just was thinking more and more about this, that I think it did actually involve the LA Kings, but we'll probably never know. We do want to update you on the playoff standings, find out what's going on with the teams that the Kings are competing against for a playoff position. That and more coming up here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you wanted, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The LA Kings will face the St. Louis Blues, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. And we normally have our rain report on Monday, checking in on the LA Kings AHL affiliate. But I did want to mention that the Reign were in action last night, and they did, in fact, extend their winning streak to 8 in a row with a 6-2 win over the Calgary Wranglers. So very nice to see the Kings AHL affiliate playing really well right now. We'll have to get friend of the show, Jared Shaffron, on from the Ontario Reign here in the near future to talk about what's going on with the Ontario Reign. Checking the standings in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference playoff race coming into Tuesday's action. The Edmonton Oilers still 81 points, still in second place in the Pacific Division. The LA Kings are still in third, now 77 points on the season, as the Kings moved 4 points back of the number 2 team, Edmonton, and home ice in the first round of the playoffs. If those positions hold, that would be the first round matchup, Kings versus Oilers. So a little bit of ground gain by the Kings. Nashville is still at 78 points. They are stuck in fourth place in the Central. Almost certainly they will remain there the rest of the season. So it doesn't matter that they have more points than the Kings or not. If the Kings are in that third spot in the Pacific, then they don't have to worry about the Nashville Predators. As for Vegas, they are at 75 points. So the Kings move 2 points up on Vegas for that third spot in the Pacific. Now, the Golden Knights will be in action tonight. We'll talk more about that in a second. So they'll be looking to gain ground on the Kings with a win. Then you've got St. Louis and Minnesota, 69 points. Seattle and Calgary have 67 points. They are in the distance for a possible wild card spot. Now, if the playoffs started today, it would be the Kings against the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the playoffs. And the Kings and Oilers do face off against each other one more time this season, coming up on March the 28th in Edmonton. That'll obviously be a big game as far as the Kings' chances of maybe overtaking Edmonton, getting that second spot and having home ice advantage in a potential first round matchup. As for the games of interest tonight for the Kings, I mentioned the Golden Knights are in action. They are in Seattle to take on the Kraken. Now, Vegas, with a win, could catch the Kings in the standings. They would each have 77 points, but Vegas, with the game played tonight, would have played one more game than the Kings to get those 77 points. So that means the Kings would have a game in hand, and that would give them the tiebreaker. And so there is no opportunity, regardless of what happens tonight, for the Vegas Golden Knights to pass the Kings in the standings or move them out of where they are in the division. They could catch them in points, but again, they'd have played one more game. So again, there's no scenario tonight where the Kings will not have third place in the Pacific Division going into their game against St. Louis on Wednesday. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Wednesday's show, we will take a look at that Kings 3-game road trip, which will start Wednesday night, have a preview of that Kings-Blues matchup in St. Louis. The Blues are still fighting for a wild card spot out west. On Thursday, obviously, we're going to recap the Kings-Blues game and then look ahead to the Friday-Saturday doubleheader in Chicago and in Dallas. And, of course, on Friday, recap the Kings-Blackhawks game and have another Kings fan feedback show. Looking forward to that. And maybe we'll mix in a guest at some point as well. We'll have to work on that. If you want to get involved with that fan feedback show, Send an email. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd love for you to post your comments in the comments section, which always helps the algorithm. With that, love for you to stay connected as well with the show on social media 24/7. We're on X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.